Hi everyone, it's Kathy Pope. We're going to talk tonight about community-based epistemologies and the impact on nonprofits. I've been in nonprofit for years, so this is dear to my heart. We'll start with an outline, what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about what is epistemology and what are community-based epistemologies. We've already touched on those in class. So go back to the basics. What is a nonprofit versus a for-profit? How do we look at community engagement with nonprofits? What is a community needs assessment? Is it EBP or PBE? What is community-based research? Participatory decision-making, funders and return on investment, and then finally, what makes an ideal nonprofit? And what are the outputs of a great nonprofit? So what is epistemology? Everyone knows pretty much what it is. We've talked about it before in class, but it's concerned with how knowledge is understood and comprehended. It is concerned with everything that informs us regarding how we learn and understand what we believe to be true. What are community-based epistemologies? Well, it involves the community leaders, service providers, companies, and residents of the community. It allows you to understand and celebrate the culture and history of a community. It allows you to evaluate how the population has been treated historically. And it allows you to connect to the community members' own experiences. Well, the basics. What is a nonprofit versus a for-profit organization? Well, nonprofit means just that, not for profit. Another word for profit is surplus, meaning surplus of revenue over expenses. Nonprofits are not prohibited from having surplus, but they are restricted with what they can do with those profits. What is the restriction? Nonprofits must reinvest all the surplus back into the organization and into the mission of the nonprofit. In fact, it's fiscally responsible if you have 3 months worth of your expenses in a cash reserve account, just in case you don't have any funding for 3 months, or you rely on government funding and there is none. And then a for-profit corporation, of course, is that they can and do distribute profits to its shareholders. Well, what is civic engagement? Because nonprofits play a distinct role in encouraging civil engagement. They provide civic benefits to the communities that they serve by promoting engagement with those in their communities. What are the steps that nonprofits take to increase community level participation? Well, they engage volunteers and donors in their activities. They convene members of the community around a specific issue or activity. They want to be involved and need to be involved in the community. They collaborate with other organizations, both inside and outside community boundaries. And they promote education and awareness. This is big. You don't know what you don't know. So it's important to connect people with issues within the community and act as a catalyst to engage. Civic engagement allows community members to participate in their own community, shape the future of their community, and improve the conditions for themselves and their neighbors. Nonprofits enhance that civic engagement by responding to the needs of minority groups within the community, which generates trust among the public. Well, how would you know what the needs are in a community? You would do a community needs assessment. What is that? Well, for a community needs assessment, you are assessing and addressing the needs of a community. You gather information from multiple sources, quantitatively and qualitatively, and you identify the needs. You include a wide range of community leaders, service providers, and residents. You may utilize surveys, focus groups, interviews, and census data. You may analyze that data afterwards and set a course of action. I've actually been involved in a community needs assessment in my community in Middle Georgia. I was honored to be part of the team. They wanted to know what my thoughts were, and it really let me know about my community. So what do focus groups and interviews allow you to do? Well, you gain a lot of understanding of the role of the nonprofit, what the needs are. You understand the perception regarding the need for change. You experience empowerment, and you allow for the community members to be empowered. You promote participation through building collaborative partnerships. And you must view the community members more as partners and less as clients. So at my food bank, we actually do have partners. We call them partner agencies. And we supply the food to these agencies, and then the clients would be the people struggling with hunger coming to our partner agencies to get food. So is it EPB or PBE? So what's the difference? Well, evidence-based practice is the EBP, and that is where you're evaluating data by statistical and scientific method. There's no inclusion of cultural variables. There's no examination of the impact on cultures on the outcomes. So concerns would be, what is the relevance or effectiveness of culturally diverse clients? A challenge for historically underserved groups. So this sounds just like school-centric that we studied. Well, what is PBE? Well, this is practice-based evidence. It is community-based. You look at the culturally grounded frameworks underlying the evidence. You identify the links between cultural beliefs and values, the needs of the community, and then interventions if needed. You formalize the process used to evaluate PBEs so the measured outcomes are culturally centered and community defined. You encourage communities to use their own indigenous epistemological frameworks to establish credible evidence. Well, how do you design evaluation strategies in PBE, practice-based evidence? By respecting the culture and including it in designing evaluation strategies is the best way to get the results to improve outcome measures among historically underserved populations. Funders are looking for program outcomes and impact, not just outputs, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. Nonprofits must persuade funders that the work is needed, and they must be able to document effectiveness. Community-based research. So for community-based research, you analyze the outcomes for social change. Conducting research that embraces and integrates the participation and historical knowledge of community members in order to achieve learning outcomes and social change. The key to this approach, direct participation by individuals affected in the community. Again, community-based epistemologies. Participatory decision-making in community-based nonprofits. So nonprofits have a role of member participation in decision-making, PDM, from an organizational learning perspective. Community-based nonprofits serve as a go-between for individuals and the community, and they can be a conduit to increased community participation. They can and should be community change agents. Because community-based nonprofits emerge in response to the needs of a local community, they have a role in participatory decision-making. What about funders and return on investment? So the funders of a nonprofit want a return on investment. They want evidence of the effectiveness of the work. They want to see a commitment to continuous improvement in the communities that they are concerned with and connected to. So we moved from outputs, activities or services, to outcomes, which reports results, impact, and it records change. So what changes have occurred and over what period of time? So not too long ago, nonprofits only reported out the outputs, how much, how many. And then the shift came to be, I want to know the impact. So this is where some degree of research is needed to measure the impact. So that impact needs to be measurable and quantifiable. So the caveat here, of course, is that funders may offer little flexibility on how programs are structured. Well, what is the best approach? Does the nonprofit go into a community and it tells the community what they need, what we think they want? Or do we engage the community to find out the real needs of the community and work together to move the community forward? Clearly, the latter is the best approach and the most used in nonprofits. So what is the ideal nonprofit? The primary difference between nonprofit and for-profit: in the for-profit, money is both the input and the output, the measure of greatness. In nonprofits, money is only the input. Money is not a measure of greatness. So what are the inputs of greatness for a nonprofit? First, you need disciplined people. The leader has personal humility and professional will. She builds a superior executive team and figures out the best path to greatness. You must make good hires. Disciplined thought. Confront the brutal facts of reality. Don't turn a blind eye. Don't ignore bad behavior or sweep things under the rug. And reduce your challenges to simplistic ideas. Disciplined action. Create a culture of discipline. It will enable creativity and entrepreneurship. Build a culture around freedom and responsibility. Remember, you've hired disciplined people. Also, continue improvement and delivery of results. You must stay focused on those you serve. Build greatness to last. Leaders build a company that can tick along without them, rather than feeding their egos by becoming indispensable. They want to leave an organization much better than they found it. Pour into it. What are the outputs of a great nonprofit? Deliver superior performance, result in efficiency in delivering on the social mission. Keep that mission in mind. Make a distinct impact. It serves the community so well that if it were to disappear, it would leave a hole that could not easily be filled. Achieve lasting endurance. Deliver exceptional results beyond any leader, any great idea, or any well-funded program. This study complements well with our study of how to be a culturally responsive school leader, embracing historical and community-based epistemologies, as opposed to only a school-centric leadership perspective. I hope that you have enjoyed our study of community-based epistemologies.